Well, one nice thing about rotten wood, once I got the tailgate off of it and took all the hardware off the ends, I could just lift this side up and pull it, and it just sheared away from the front that's over there. And then I just picked up the front and moved it around and broke it off, and then just lifted that up because it was no longer attached. And this piece of wood has served me well. And now my problem is to get these brackets off, and hopefully I can find my 4-inch grinder, because it'll be a lot easier if I can grind those off. Well, I got all the brackets off of it. Got the hinges off the back. Got those in a box that can just be hammered on my anvil vise straight, sanded down, primed, and painted it. And now I'm going to use this as a template for where my holes need to be, since this board is basically still 4x8 on the outside edge. And I got a couple 2x4s to work on. My bride helped me move this stuff around because that plywood and some of these pieces are to finish this wall. And the plywood for the new trailer box was stuck up on over there. And that's about where I want that saw to end up. And then this saw is going to be about there to just be positioned in and out as you need it. And over on that side, I will have my router table. And I'll probably have that on casters that pivot and lock. And now I got to take one of these sheets of plywood and put it on those sawhorses and mark the marks for my clamps. Now originally I put a board on top of that trailer and got it all squared up and lined up, and the opening on there is almost a little over 48 inches, so it was easy side to side. And then I just mark where to drill the holes and drill the holes in the plywood. Since this plywood is pretty short but the edges are still uniform, then I could sit these here and drill out where the brackets go. And then when I put the hinge on the back, I will drill that out at that time, because they're a little bit too wallowed out to try to hit it exactly. And if I replace the hinges, they might not use the same pattern. And now I just need to get rid of that board and cut one of these boards in half long ways to make the sides. Well, that's Wednesday, October the 22nd. It's a rainy, dreary, and windy day. You can see those pine trees moving around. And I'm hoping it's going to let up a little bit so I can take some measurements on my boards outside. I got my kerosene heater going because it was 58 degrees in here. A little chilly, and I'm going to paint all this stuff. And there are the ends, tailgate and the front end, and there's the two halves for the sides. And that's my board pre-drilled for the brackets that hold it on the trailer. And I had to cut these, and then you need to sand down your kerf marks where you had the you cut it in half. And then sometimes on the edges of these boards you have glue sticking up, and there was quite a number of places of glue on these. I don't know if I can find one, but anyway, see, these were glues, little globs of glue, and you need to sand those down so that it can take primer and paint and not be a bulge, and it'll sit flat on the trailer. And then I just have to put 2x4 frames around all those, and then I need to attach it to that. And Lord only knows how we're going to lift it and put it back on that trailer, because it was all my bride and I could do to lift that up on the sawhorses, just to mark it and drill the holes out. But I've got all the paint, and I got some primer, and I got a gallon of paint, and I got all kinds of rollers, because I hate painting, but I seem to end up doing more painting than I do anything else. And I don't like to paint, but I do paint. So I've got tons of trays and rollers and handles and sanders and everything. So it's ready to prime. Well, this is the bottom of my trailer box. And it's got 2 coats of prime, dried between the coats, recommended on the can. And then the finished coat was a 4-hour wait, as long as you got temperature up. And we had a 65 degree day today. And it's got 2 coats of that on it. And that's got 2 coats of primer coat. That's 2 coats of primer. It's painted on the edges, just like that's painted on the edges. And now I'm going to paint this side and the edges again, so the edges will have 4 coats and the top will have 2 coats of primer and 2 coats of top coat. And the only thing I haven't done anything with is the tailgate and the front, and they're the boards that go with it. And that was my old tailgate, and I used it as a guide. And then all those 2x4s are cut to go on the sides and the ends. And then between these two, I don't know if I just showed you, but see, those are for doing the front and the back. So now I got to put another coat, and it's dark outside. And I would be watching the World Series, but it's 8:35 on the East Coast. And I got to put a coat on this, and then in the morning I will put another coat on these 3 boards, and then they'll be done. And then I'll work on the tailgate and the front board and frame that up after I prime and paint all this wood. And all of that's going to be painted and primed, and that way it will not rot very quickly, because this thing is exposed to the weather a lot. Well, 25 minutes later, I've got that painted and the 3 edges painted. I couldn't paint the bottom one, and you can just put 2x4s under it or anything 4x4s to be able to paint it without touching the floor with your rollers. And the sides have 1 coat, and in the morning I'll put another coat on these 3 boards and they'll be done, except I have to put 2x4s framing on that to be able to attach it to the bottom. And I'll have to prime and paint those. And if it wasn't 9 o'clock at night, I would paint all those. But it's been a busy day. We've been working on the pond out front, getting up pine needles and going to the dump. And my bride and I are both tired. She's over there watching the World Series, and that's where I'm going. Well, it's Sunday, October the 26th, and it's about 10 minutes after 6, and we're ready to go home from our wife's vacation. I've got 1 coat on one side of all these framing 2x4s and the end and the front of the trailer. These are the other boards for the bottom and the sides, and these are the long runs for the frame on the sides. And once they dry in 4 hours, or tomorrow or Tuesday when I come down here, I'll flip these over and do the other ends. And I'm doubling the ends. Whenever you have the end of a piece of wood, 2x4s, any dimensional lumber, always prime it twice at least and coat it every time you do the board. So they're coated right now, and then when I flip them over to do the other side, they'll get another coat, because that's the weakest place and that's where water and moisture can go in. And with 2 coats of primer and 2 coats of finished top coat, water can't go in there. Time to go up the country.